Rick Sanchez is not a good person, like a really terrible figure. He's selfish, egotistical, and super cynical.
Listen, Morty, I hate to break it to you, but what people call love is just a chemical reaction that compels animals to breed.
Way to talk to a teenager. But behind all that talk, there's a story to tell, to show that Rick is just a plain human after all. Today, we're going over every single time you feel sorry for Rick Sanchez, starting with the wedding squanchers. This episode starts pretty normally though. The family is having breakfast, Beth's nagging Jerry about getting a job as usual, and suddenly this weird alien male creature shows up with a wedding invitation.
Greetings, this is Bird Person.
And Tierney.
Inviting you to Planet Squanch for our mate-melding ceremony.
Ugh.
Now, Rick immediately wants nothing to do with this wedding. He literally calls wedding funerals with cake. But then Jerry, being the genius he is, accidentally gets himself transported to the wedding planet by the male creature. So now Rick has no choice but to drag the whole family along. They get to the wedding and everything seems to be going pretty good at first. The family's mingling with aliens, Squanchy's being his usual self.
And you must be Beth. On Squanch, eh?
Meanwhile, Morty keeps bugging Rick to actually participate and enjoy himself for once. Here's where it gets interesting. Rick actually listens to Morty. When it comes to her speeches, Rick gets up and gives this surprisingly heartfelt toast about love and how happy he is for Bird Person and Tammy, even though the speech wasn't perfect.
Hi everybody, I'm Rick. You know, when I first met Bird Person, he was,
But for like 2 minutes, Rick Sanchez is actually being a decent human being and opening up emotionally, and that's exactly where everything goes to hell. Tammy suddenly reveals that she's been a deep cover Galactic Federation agent this whole time. The building gets surrounded, chaos breaks out, and then the absolute worst thing happens to Bird Person. Bird Person gets shot multiple times right in front of Rick. We're talking about Rick's best friend, probably the only person in the universe who truly understood him. The look of pure horror on Rick's face says everything. Most of the wedding guests get gunned down, while Rick desperately tries to fight back. He rigs his portal gun to explode and take out some Federation agents, but it's too little too late. So Squanchy has to turn into a giant warrior just to help them escape, and even then, everything Rick cared about is gone. But wait, it gets so much worse. Now Rick has to explain to his family that they can never go back home again. Earth isn't safe because the Federation will look there first. If any of them try to go back, they'll just get interrogated. So Rick starts desperately searching for a new planet where they can hide. And guys, their options are terrible. There's a planet that's way too small.
I thought it was further away.
A large planet where literally everything is on a cob, which makes Rick panic for some reason. Comment down below if you know what made Rick panic for a second there. And also, they found a planet with a sun that screams non-stop for 42 hours straight. Can you believe it? Well, they end up settling for the tiny Earth, because what choice do they have? Well, they're hiding in this cramped little house, watching new reports about how the Federation has completely taken over their real Earth. Rick goes off by himself to think, and that's when he overhears his family having the most important conversation probably in the entire series.
And this is purely hypothetical. What if we turned your father into the government?
Jerry wants to turn Rick in because he thinks Rick only cares about himself, but everyone else, they defend Rick completely.
That's not the point, Dad! We love Rick! For the most part.
Yeah, you don't love people in hopes of a reward, Dad. You love them unconditionally.
And Beth breaks down crying.
Why?
Because I don't want him to leave again, you dumb
Rick hears every word of this. He realizes that despite being the worst father and grandfather imaginable, despite constantly putting them in danger, despite his selfishness and destructive behavior, his family actually loves him. They're willing to give up their entire lives on Earth just to stay with him. So what does Rick do with this information? He makes the most selfish decision in his entire life. Rick tells Morty they're going to get ice cream, but instead, he flies off to Cantina and calls the Galactic Federation. He pretends to be Jerry and basically turns himself in, asking only his family gets bare. And here's the kicker, the Federation tells him the Smiths aren't even wanted. His family was never in real danger for them. The family gets sent back to Earth, which is now under Federation control. Jerry's actually happy, but everyone else looks miserable. And Rick ends up in maximum security prison. And when another prisoner asks him what he did to end up there, Rick just says,
Everything.
think about what just happened here. Rick lost his best friend, gave up his freedom, his adventures, his entire life just to make sure they could go home safely. If that doesn't make you feel sorry for Rick Sanchez, nothing will. Now this next one is a completely different kind of heartbreak for Rick, and honestly, it might be even worse than the previous one. Rick, Morty, and Summer are just cruising through space when they pick up a distress signal from some alien ship. Rick, being Rick, decides to board it and loot whatever he can find, but instead of treasure, they find the surviving crew members who tell them their planet got taken over by some hive mind that assimilates people, and then that hive mind shows up and takes over the rest of the crew right in front of them. But here's the weird part, this hive mind apparently knows Rick. Awkwardly, Rick admits that he used to date this thing called Unity, so they go down to Unity's planet and we get to see what a hive mind relationship with Rick actually looks like. Unity has taken over the entire population and controls every single person on the planet. It's basically playing God with millions of people. But hey, at least everyone's technically happy and well fed, right? Summer immediately hates this because she sees it as Unity stealing everyone's free will and individuality. But Rick doesn't care about any of this philosophical stuff. He's just excited to be back with his ex. And guys, when I say Rick and Unity waste no time getting back together, I mean they went all out.
Oh yeah! I want you!
Rick was having the time of his life, but then things get interesting when another hive mind called Beta 7 shows up for a trading mission. This Beta 7 is clearly trying to hit on Unity, but it's super awkward about it.
You know, I think Beta 7 over there is hoping your alliance can be more than practical.
Rick makes fun of it until it leaves, but not before Rick notices that Beta 7 left behind some materials that can be turned into drugs to make their partying even crazier. Meanwhile, Morty and Summer start noticing that Unity's control over the population is getting weaker. People are starting to break free from the hive mind, and immediately they start a race war. Like the second these people get their individuality back, they're trying to kill each other based on their nipple shapes or whatever. Morty and Summer realize that Rick's influence is making Unity lose control because of all the and partying are messing with Unity's ability to focus. They try to get Rick to leave, but Rick doesn't want to hear it. He's finally happy with someone who understands him. So Rick sends Morty and Summer home through a portal and keeps partying with Unity. They warn Unity directly about how toxic Rick is and tell Unity to take care of itself. And that's when everything falls apart. While Rick goes to use the bathroom, Unity makes a decision. Every single person on the planet disappears, leaving behind farewell notes for Rick. Unity explains that while they love their time together, they can't be together because they're too similar. Both of them turn other people into versions of themselves. Unity tells Rick that he's actually better at what Unity was designed to do. Rick can change people and corrupt them, but he can never be changed himself. His self-destructive nature brings everyone around him down, and Unity realized that being with Rick was making it hurt the people it was supposed to protect. Unity ends the letter by saying it loves Rick but can't be with him.
But I know how it goes with us. I lose who I am and become part of you, because in a strange way, you're better at what I do without even trying. Yours, and nobody else's. Unity.
Rick goes home totally defeated. Beth confronts him about some alien that escaped from his lab, but Rick doesn't even argue. He just gives up and goes to his garage. This is where we see Rick at one of his lowest points. Rick picks up a death ray and then he unfreezes this horrible, suffering creature he's been keeping in storage. This thing is screaming and in pain, so Rick comforts it gently before putting it out of its misery with the death ray. Then Rick sits down and points the death ray at himself. He was ready to end it all, but he then passes out drunk before the machine finishes charging up. Thank God he passed out because he literally would have been dead if he hadn't. Now this next one hits different because it's about Rick confronting the one fear he spent his entire life hiding behind. In the episode Fear No More, Rick and Morty are at this alien theme park called the Carnival of Nightmares, but they're too desensitized to be scared of anything. Then this mysterious guy in a suit shows up and takes them to what looks like a normal Denny's on Earth. Inside, they learn about the fear hole. In the man's bathroom, a hole that shows you your greatest fear so you can conquer it. Morty jumps in and faces monsters trying to dissect him. Rick follows, rescues him, and they think they've won. But when they get back home, a younger Rick crashes through a portal holding his wife Diane. The younger Rick disintegrates, leaving Diane confused to see an older version of her husband. Rick realizes they're still in the fear hole and thinks he's figured it out. Morty's greatest fear is seeing Rick reunited with Diane and losing his significance. So Rick decides to test this by spending time with Diane. At first, Rick's attempt to reconnect with Diane go terribly. His callous flirting and comments about the meaninglessness of their reality just upset her. But then Rick creates a robot to apologize and invite her to the zoo. At the zoo, Rick watches Diane bond with Beth and Summer, smiling genuinely as his family has a beautiful moment together. Later, Rick and Diane sit by a duck pond, talking and laughing with familiar warmth. They go drinking, get wasted, and outside the bar, Rick admits he doesn't want to let her go, despite knowing she isn't real. But there's a horrible cost. The more time Rick spends with Diane, the more his body deteriorates. His face gets thinner, his body wastes away. The fear hole is literally feeding off Rick, slowly killing him. When Morty tells Rick the hole is draining his life, Rick doesn't care. He'd rather die here with Diane than face reality without her. When Morty says his greatest fear might be watching Rick die, Rick just tells him to stop watching. Morty goes back to ask the suited man to release them, but he refuses. He says Rick is the perfect fear hole victim, someone who'd rather die than face his fears. So Morty focuses on overcoming his own fear of not being normal or accepted. Every time he tries, reality becomes unstable. Rick tries to stop him because he doesn't want to leave, but when Rick sees Morty's body is also deteriorating, he changes his mind. Rick lets go and says goodbye to Diane and starts rapping in front of the crowd.
This is my grandson. Don't look at his pee-pee. Instead of staring at Morty, put your eyes on me. I'm a roped out freak, loose dog in my ass, macaroni in my pocket, rickety masterclass.
Not gonna lie, that was pretty fire. After facing their fears, they both get out of the fear hole, but they keep escaping the fear hole over and over again, facing different fears each time. Finally, Morty gives up and sits down next to Rick. That's when Rick makes a small comment about Morty being irreplaceable, and everything clicks. Morty realizes his deepest fear. He's afraid he's replaceable to Rick. Worse, he realizes the Rick he's been with was fake. When Morty finally escapes for real, he finds the actual Rick waiting outside. Rick explains he figured the hole only works one person at a time. When Morty asks if Rick really thinks he's irreplaceable, Rick gives his typical non-answer, but it's enough. Rick suggests going to the hole by himself, but Morty begs him not to. They leave together, but Rick doubles back and stares at the fear hole, clearly tempted by the chance to see his wife again. Instead of jumping in, Rick leaves a photo of Morty from his wallet on the bulletin board. Good old Rickaroony, if you know what I mean. So the moral of the story is, if you don't want to get inside of a fear hole, you need to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Moving on, this next one is a gross one. That involves bathroom things, ugh. In this episode, Rick has found the perfect place to take a dump. A gorgeous alien planet with aurora lights, waterfalls, and complete solitude. It's his sacred space, his moment of peace in an otherwise chaotic existence. And someone had the audacity to use his toilet. Now, most people would just be annoyed, maybe put up a sign, or find a new spot. But this is Rick Sanchez we're talking about. He's not about to let some random intruder violate his bathroom sanctuary. So naturally, Rick goes completely overboard. He sets up a high-tech underground bunker beneath his toilet planet, complete with analysis equipment that can identify exactly what sandwich this mystery pooper ate. The journey to find the toilet thief takes Rick across the galaxy. He threatens the fly mob boss and his 470,000 children over sandwich delivery records. He infiltrates robot wars wearing a metal funnel as a hat. He literally changes the course of an entire intergalactic conflict just to get information about who ordered an avian protein club sandwich with no lettuce. And when Rick finally tracks down the culprit, it's Tony, a quiet, soft-spoken office worker whose only crime was being a fellow shy pooper who found Rick's beautiful toilet and couldn't resist using it. Tony's not some intergalactic villain. He's just a sad, lonely guy who lost his wife and found a moment of peace on Rick's toilet. Here's where it gets heartbreaking. Tony explains that his wife is dead, and Rick's response is to open a portal to another dimension and bring over a version of Tony whose wife is still alive.
Tell him what you told me.
My wife's still alive.
What did you do today?
Oh, I pooped on a really awesome toilet I found.
It's cruel, even by Rick's standards. But Rick can't just kill Tony. Despite all his threats and posturing, when push comes to shove, Rick creates an elaborate heaven simulation where Tony can be with his wife forever. Tony gets his perfect afterlife, encouraging him to poop in toilet heaven. Except Tony sees through it. Even in paradise, he realizes it's fake and tries to choke himself with the breathing tubes. Rick has to save him, revealing his entire operation, a prison where people can live their wildest dreams while staying out of Rick's life. Tony hits the nail on the head. These are people Rick refuses to kill, but also refuses to let into his life. It's Rick's pattern push everyone away, but feel too guilty to completely destroy them. But the real gut punch comes at the end, after Tony dies space skiing down Mount Space Avers. Living life to the fullest after their encounter, Rick rigs his precious toilet with an elaborate punishment system.
There he is. There's our guy. Congrats, Tony. Have fun with your stupid toilet that you get to use all by yourself now. Look at you sitting there, king sit on his throne of loneliness. All hail his majesty, the saddest piece of garbage in the entire cosmos.
This moment mirrors the devastating ending of autoerotic assimilation, where Rick nearly kills himself after Unity leaves him. Here, Rick has achieved what he wanted, complete solitude and control over his bathroom space. But the victory is hollow. He's punishing himself more than he ever punished Tony. The toilet was never about the toilet. It was about Rick's desperate need for something, anything that's completely his own. A space where he doesn't have to deal with family drama, cosmic threats, or other people's problems. But when that space gets invaded, Rick's response reveals just how fragile his emotional state really is. In typical Rick fashion, he gets what he thinks he wants, total control and isolation, only to realize it's a prison of his own making. Ooh, you gotta sometimes feel for this guy, man. But next up, look. Rick Sanchez has always been a master of compartmentalization. He builds walls around his emotions, deflects with sarcasm, and pretends he doesn't care about anyone or anything. But every so often, those walls come crashing down, and we see the broken man underneath. In Star Wars Return of the Jerry, it delivers one of those devastating moments that strips Rick bare and forces him to confront the truth he's been running from his entire life. The episode starts with what should be a typical Rick adventure. Space Beth shows up, there's confusion about which Beth is the clone, and the Galactic Federation wants to capture her. Rick handles it with his usual swagger, making jokes about Star Wars and acting like he's in complete control. But beneath the surface, something much darker is brewing. See, Rick has been living with a secret that's eating him alive. When he gave Beth the choice between staying on Earth or exploring the universe, she asked him to make the decision for her. She wanted to know what he really wanted, and Rick being Rick, he created a clone, copied Beth's memories, and then randomized the containers so he wouldn't know which was which. Think about that for a second. Rick literally chose to not know which daughter was real because he couldn't bear the weight of his own decision. He'd rather live in uncertainty than face the possibility that he might have chosen wrong. Throughout the episode, both Beths are desperately trying to figure out which one is the clone. It's tearing them apart, and Rick keeps deflecting, but you can see it in his eyes. The secret is destroying him. The climax comes when Rick has to face Phoenix Person, his old friend Bird Person, now corrupted and working for the Galactic Federation. This isn't just any enemy. This is someone Rick genuinely cared about. Someone who died at Tammy's wedding because of Rick's actions. And now he's been brought back as a weapon against Rick. Rick tries to reach his best friend, desperately telling him that he killed Tammy, thinking that might bring Bird Person back, but Phoenix Person loved Tammy, and Rick's good news only make things worse. They fight, and Rick's get brutally beaten. His cybernetic guts literally spilled out on the floor. Even when the Beths arrive to help, even when Jerry accidentally saves the day by using Tammy's corpse as a puppet, the damage is done. But the real gut punch comes at the end. The family is actually okay with having two Beths. The kids like having two moms. Jerry likes having two wives, if you know what I mean. And everyone's happy. Rick has a projector ready to reveal who the real Beth is, thinking this will solve everything. But when he shows that he mind wiped his own memory, both Beths are disgusted.
So what, after all this, you don't want to know the truth?
The truth is we have more important shit to do, like raise our kids and stamp out the Federation, neither of which seem like they want anything to do with you.
Even Morty and Summer don't care. They think having two badass moms is a win-win. Rick's big revelation, his attempt to make things right, is completely rejected by his own family. So Rick watches the memory alone. He sees himself create the clone, copy the memories, and then deliberately randomize the containers. He chose his own emotional comfort over his daughter's identity. And then comes the moment that breaks him. He sits there alone, surrounded by the wreckage of his relationship. His family has rejected him, and he's forced to confront that all of this, every bit of it, is his fault. He said he's a bad father before, but it was always with a smirk. This time, he really means it. He knows it's true, and he can't joke his way out of it anymore.
Holy shit, I'm a terrible father.
The smartest man in the universe finally understands he's the dumbest person in the room when it comes to love. Okay, this is getting super dark, and I know what some of you guys are thinking. Yeah, Rick is a terrible person. We don't need to feel bad for him. He deserves it. But hold on to your horses, cause this is where it all really began for Rick. You see, Rick wasn't like this before. For 5 seasons, we've watched Rick Sanchez be the most cynical, alcoholic, nihilistic bastard in the multiverse. He's emotionally abusive to his family, destroys entire civilizations for fun, and treats everyone children around him like disposable garbage. But in this episode, Rick Morty Jack, it finally pulls back the curtain and shows us the Rick origin story we never knew we needed. And it's absolutely devastating. If I tell you that there was once a Rick who was actually happy, would you believe it? I mean, a Rick who had everything. A loving wife named Diane, a young daughter named Beth, and a simple life in his garage working on inventions. This Rick wasn't interested in portal technology or interdimensional travel. He loved being a regular dad and husband. Probably the only Rick in the multiverse who actually chose family over science. But then another Rick shows up, Rick Prime, the original Rick who invented interdimensional portal travel. He offers Rick C137 the technology, the chance to abandon his family and explore infinite realities. And our Rick, he says no. He literally tells another version of himself to get lost because he's happy with his life. That should have been the end of it. Rick Prime should have just moved on, but he doesn't. Instead, he does something so petty that it sets off a chain reaction that destroys everything good about Rick C137. Rick Prime drops a bomb on Rick's house, killing Diane and Beth instantly. Not because Rick C137 was a threat, but simply because Rick said no. Because when Rick dared to choose love over science, Rick Prime decided that Rick C137 needed to be punished for it. Imagine that for a second. Your wife and daughter are murdered by another version of yourself simply because you refused to abandon them, the very thing you were trying to protect. This is where Rick's transformation begins. The man who once chose family over everything now has nothing left but rage. He finishes building the portal gun, not for adventure or discovery, but for one single purpose: to hunt down Rick Prime. And here's where it gets even more tragic. Rick never finds him. Years pass, maybe decades, and Rick C137 is jumping from dimension to dimension, killing countless other Ricks, hoping one of them might be the right one. Each kill makes him more violent, more disconnected, more broken. The alcohol starts flowing to numb the pain. The nihilism sets in because what's the point of caring about anything when the universe can just take it all away? Eventually, Rick gives up the hunt and settles in the dimension we know. Not because he found peace, but because he's waiting for Rick Prime to come home. He attaches himself to this Beth, this family, not out of love, but as bait, which might be the saddest thing of all. Even Rick's return to the family wasn't about them. It was just another rebound relationship for a man who can't cope with being alone. But here's what makes this revelation so heartbreaking. Rick C137 was the good Rick. He was the one Rick who chose family, who said no to infinite power because he loved what he had. And the universe punished him for it so severely that he became the very thing that destroyed his life in the first place. Until, well, the episode Armored Stricken. Probably the best episode in my opinion. In this episode, it finally gives Rick what he's been chasing all these years. The episode starts with Rick and Morty literally hunting Rick Prime across the multiverse like they're playing interdimensional Pokemon. Each Rick they capture turns out to be another decoy, another reminder that Rick Prime is always one step ahead. Rick's frustration is palpable. This is the closest he's ever been to his goal, and it keeps slipping through his fingers until Evil Morty arrives, who basically becomes the universe's most reluctant life coach. He shows up complaining that Rick's fracking of reality is messing with his peaceful retirement and decided to help speed up the process. When they finally track down Rick Prime's real location, he reveals something that makes Rick's tragedy even worse: the Omega device. Not only that Rick Prime killed C137's Diane and Beth, he killed every version of Diane across infinite realities. Every universe, gone. Rick Prime erased the very concept of Rick ever having that happiness. And here's the truly sick part. Rick Prime sets up a battle royale for all the Ricks that tried to kill him, promising that the winner could have their Diane back. These broken Ricks, desperate and driven mad by loss, tear each other apart for a chance at redemption. Rick knows it's a lie, but the other Ricks are too far gone to listen. When Rick finally faces Rick Prime, the confrontation is everything we expected and nothing like what Rick hoped. Oh my god, Rick Prime is such a smug and arrogant person. Like he literally calls Rick Dead Wife Rick like it's a joke.
Alright, here we go!
There it is. Yep. Wow, the wife guy. Dead wife Rick. I'll tell you, this guy does not know when to quit. I'm gonna kill you. Honestly, wife guy, I do miss when it was just us.
Mocks him for using Diane's voice in his ship's AI.
I can see why you hate him.
And she sounds like our wife. Like in a f***ed up robot way, but that's definitely her voice.
You sentimental little fella.
And threatens to use the Omega device on Rick's current family. The fight was brutal and eventually both Rick and Morty gets knocked out, but Evil Morty managed to trick Rick Prime into thinking that he's the real grandson. Evil Morty eventually restrains Rick Prime and lets Rick C137 get his moment. He beats his enemy to death with his bare hands, covered in blood, finally getting the revenge he dreamt of, and then nothing. Rick emerges from that room looking completely hollow. He's won. Rick Prime is dead. The man who killed his wife and daughter is gone forever, and Rick doesn't feel anything. Evil Morty takes one look at him and immediately understands what Rick is going through.
How's it feel? Better? No? Exactly the same? Yeah, it always does.
Revenge is supposed to be this climactic, fulfilling moment, but it just leaves you empty. And Evil Morty is absolutely right. Rick spent his entire existence building toward this moment, and now that it's over, he has no idea what comes next. His life's purpose has been fulfilled, and instead of closure, he's left with the crushing realization that killing Rick Prime doesn't bring Diane back. It doesn't undo the trauma or heal the wounds. The most heartbreaking part comes at the end when Rick and Morty return home.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Phew, man, when those drones uncloaked back there, I was like, oh shit, we're fucked.
Morty is celebrating their victory, talking about how great it is that they finally defeat the bad guy. Meanwhile, Rick walks through the house with a 1,000-yard stare, watching his family go about their normal lives, while he feels completely disconnected from everything. So I know Rick Sanchez is a terrible person, but hey, it wasn't entirely his fault. Which one of these episodes made you feel the most sorry for him? I mean, mine was definitely the breakup in Unity one. Ooh, that one was a tough one. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and also click here to watch some other Rick and Morty videos. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys next time in the next Rick and Morty video.